Man, it seems like I was just fairly recently talking about the planet pretty much dying on a continual basis. Radioactive leaks, Fukushima. Oh, we spilled this. We were doing a cleanup, EPA, and was it Oregon? And we messed up, and tons of toxic waste went into the river. We had the underground burning fire thing. What the hell was that? A few hundred yards away from an old storage radioactive site, and if the fire gets there, that was in some state on the east coast, or roughly eastern area, I believe, of the U.S. Can't think of it at the moment. We had the damn well blowout over in California. Oh, we tapped it, we sealed it. Everything's good. Come on back, folks. Come on back. It's good. And they come back, and their rashes breaking out. They're choking. They can't. There's weird symptoms. I mean, we had the BP oil spill a few years ago. I mean, Jesus Christ. Here, let's add one more. Thousands of gallons of radioactive waste leak at U.S. nuclear site. And that would be the Hanford site. Zero Hedge is covering this, which is great, because usually they're just financial, but when something of great importance happens, they cover it. The ongoing radioactive leak problems at the Hanford site, a nuclear storage tank in Washington State, are nothing new. We first wrote about the ongoing radioactive leak at the Hanford Nuclear Reservation, created as part of the Manhattan Project to build the atomic bomb, which they wrote this in 2013, that previous article. As a result, during the Cold War, the project was expanded to include 9 nuclear reactors and 5 large plutonium processing complexes, which produced plutonium for most of the 60,000 weapons in the U.S. nuclear arsenal. Now, can we stop for a second and just talk about that? We're not just talking about bombs, missiles, bullets. Especially not bullets, but, bombs, missiles. Let's just go there for a second. We're talking about bombs and missiles that they're radioactive, right? They're nuclear bombs, nuclear missiles. Can you imagine a scenario at all in which one country on the face of the earth needs 60,000 nuclear weapons? 60,000 nuclear weapons. When you look back at the bombing of Japan, Hiroshima and Nagasaki, when that happened, that country was like, oh, okay, yeah, we're going to go ahead and raise the white flag. We're done. We don't want to fight anymore. Let's bump that number up to 5. The average country we attack, if we go to a big war like that, it's going to take 5 nuclear bombs going off in order for that country to immediately say, we give up, this is crazy, that destruction was horrible, we can't believe what you just did to us, we give in. 5 times for each country that we have to go to war with. And you might say, well, if there's a world war, there's several countries, right? There's going to be quite a few countries we're going to have to do that to. And I will say no, not necessarily, because as soon as those allies, one of them gets hit, oh my God, look what the destruction was that the United States just did to that country. And we're allied with them, and we might be next. Listen, emergency broadcast to the world. United States, we are no longer allies with this country. We are cutting ties immediately. Have a nice day. But even if you didn't do that, and we had to go bomb that country, 5, 10, 15, 20, 25, 30, 35, 40, 45, 50, 55, 60, 65, 70, 100, let's say, which would be absolutely devastating to the whole world, radioactive-wise. What in the hell are we doing with freaking 60,000 nuclear weapons? And now we have to deal with the aftermath, which we didn't even use to probably, very few of those weapons at all. Of course, we had to do our own little testing like we always do. That's about it. Alas, the site has been leaking ever since, and many of the early safety procedures and waste disposal practices were inadequate. And Hanford's operations released significant amounts of radioactive materials into the air and the neighboring Columbia River. Hanford's weapons production reactors were decommissioned at the end of the Cold War, but the decades of manufacturing left behind 53 million gallons of high-level radioactive waste, an additional 25 million cubic feet of solid radioactive waste, 200 square miles of contaminated groundwater beneath the site, and occasional discoveries of undocumented contaminations. Just what I've read you have to sit back in awe and say, what in the hell are these warmongers thinking? What in the hell in their minds back in those days would have even convinced the president, or he had to authorize that, to make 60,000 nuclear bombs, missiles, whatever, knowing, sir, Mr. President, in doing so, we're going to have 53 million gallons, so liquid, high-level radioactive waste, and half of that, additional 25 million cubic feet of solid radioactive waste that we have to store somewhere for like at least 100 and something years probably, and hope nothing goes wrong. And then the president says, that sounds good. Let me sign off on that. You can't even fathom this happening. And then you read this story, and this is only one site. This is only one site. It's a big site. How many other sites across the U.S. are hiding radioactive waste? I just talked about the other one, right? I forget what state it's in, but it's some kind of underground fire burning, and it's hundreds of yards away from, once again, nuclear waste being stored. And if it gets there, it's going to burn, and fumes are going to go up in the air. Holy crap, big problems. So, you could literally see us slowly, very slowly, but very effectively, poisoning the living shit out of the earth. So when I hear about massive animals washing up on the shore, sea life, all the coast of California up to Alaska, scientists are perplexed at this weird fish die-off and mammal die-off, and the humpback whale, as we have the very recent numbers, are looking worse than terrible. Scientists are unsure as to what is happening. Watching the ocean current, okay, it flows that way from Japan, Fukushima, remember that? 3 reactor cores meltdown? Fukushima, up the coast of Alaska, down the coast of California. I'm sorry, where are these die-offs and mammals and stillbirths all happening? Pacific Ocean around this, Doesn't take a damn genius to figure out what the hell's going on. And the government knows it. But they dare not say, we know what this is. It's radiation from Fukushima. Because what happens then? The whole world, especially the ones being affected, that'd be the U.S., west side, but either way, is going to stand up, and including in Japan, and say, whoa, we've got to immediately get rid of these nuclear power plants. Just because of this one accident, look what it has caused. It is killing off the sea life in epic proportions. We can no longer use this. Earthquakes are a factor on Earth. We need something else. And that something else we already have. energy source that will make nuclear power look like child's play. We've had it for decades now. As Ben Rich, head of Lockheed Martin Skunk Works division, said when he was leaving and retiring, his parting statement, "We have the technology to take ET home, but it will take an act of God to get it released to the public." So not even an act of slow population Earth death is good enough for them to release this to the public. They got to keep that hidden, use it for whatever purposes they use it for, and then the rest of us, you guys still use that old nuclear powered crap, while we still have to. So I remember reading a while back, and I think my memory is right. This is true, that they have to replace these cores and stuff, these nuclear reactors every so often, and every so often can be between 10 or 15, maybe 20 years is as long as they can last. Then they become waste and they have to be stored. But even though they've lasted, 15, 20 years in production, when they become waste, it takes decades and decades and decades and decades and decades and decades for it to be quote-unquote safe. So we have this thing that lasts 15 to 20 years, gives us power, but then we have to store it, and it's completely toxic, taking up space. So if something has to be stored in an area longer than its usefulness, its production time, or it's how long it was in production for. So let's just say, these are going to sit here for 100 years, but we get 20 years out of them when we use them. That's 5 times the amount of time it needs to stay over here in rotting land, hidden, concreted over, whatever. You can clearly see what's going to happen. It's going to fill up faster because it's staying there longer. It's going to fill up faster than we are using. In other words, the production of this thing only lasts 20 years. They're storing for 100 years. That means we need more and more and more and more space to store this crap before taking the old ones out that are actually okay, supposedly okay now. It's been 100 years. Okay, let's take them out now. I mean, look at, was it Ukraine, Chernobyl? Oh, one of the worst. They even consider that's the worst nuclear accident ever. No, it's not. No, it's not. Fukushima is far worse than that and any other nuclear accident. We just don't get told this. They have 3 reactor cores melted down, and it is flooded into the ocean. When this crap happened in Ukraine, it didn't flood anything into the ocean. It just affected the immediate area for, several miles or whatever. This thing melted down, went into the ground. It's probably in the groundwater, and it's in the ocean. What the hell are we doing? This can't continue. Again, this is one of those things that cannot continue. And it's still being pushed and pushed and pushed. Nuclear industry, nuclear power is safe. It's safe, it's safe, it's safe. No, apparently it's not safe. We know it wasn't safe from the get-go, but you said it was safe because we could store it later, and we've got these checks and balances and double-walled, blah, 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 the store. It's like you're watching the slow-motion death of a species, of a planet. The Hanford site represents 2/3 of the nation's high-level radioactive waste by volume. So we have, is there a mid-level and a low-level? Yes, I know there's a low-level, but maybe there's a mid-level too. And how many of those sites exist? Today, Hanford is the most contaminated nuclear site in the United States and is the focus of the nation's largest environmental cleanup. The government spends $2 billion every single year on Hanford cleanup, 1/3 of its entire budget for nuclear cleanup nationally. The cleanup is expected to last decades, of course. However, what the hell? Trying to zoom in and I end up getting taken to some other site. Let's try that again. Any day now. I thought this was 4G, blah, blah, blah. No? I mean, whatever. I'm not even going to continue. This is just disgusting. This is crazy. How the hell is this possible? Again, as long as we're using nuclear power, and they only give us 15, 20 years, if that, out of these cores, and then they've got to be sent off somewhere, and then the water that was used to cool those cores is also radioactive. We got to store that somewhere. And then, we had a leak. Oh yeah, this thing happened the other day, and it went above the floodgate, and a little bit leaked into the river. We don't know how much, but we think it was just a few gallons. Everything's fine. And then it turns out, no, it was like thousands of gallons or hundreds of gallons. And what about the people downstream? What about the fact that it's going to get into the ground? Nuclear power is safe. Don't sweat it. Even though we have the technology to take ET home, according to Ben Rich, Lockheed Martin, not good enough. We won't use that technology here. And I think it was Bob Lazar, who again worked in that industry, early 1990s, 1989, said, I'm pretty sure he said that just this little small, like baseball size or whatever, of what he called element 115 would power a small city for like 20 years or something. And when it's used, whenever you have, basically you're producing energy, there's a certain efficiency rating, and the best we've got, I think, is like less than 10% efficient or something like that. It's just the way it is. But this stuff was like nearly 100% efficient because of the decay rate he talked about. And I believe because of that, it also becomes safe to where, as it's used up, you don't have this, leftover nuclear waste you got to deal with. If I remember correctly, it's been a long time since I've read or watched any of his videos from a long time ago. The Bob Lazar tapes. But I mean, again, what the hell are we doing? This same thing with oil. We could have been off oil a long time ago. And how many oil spills and disasters have happened, and how much polluting of the earth has taken place running oil lines, especially when we're out of the United States. I remember seeing documentaries. Like, once you're out of the United States and some of these South American countries, out in the jungles of these places, the oversight and the regulations is completely lax, and they're leaking all the time. They don't even care. Just let it go. Why? Not because we care and we should go out there and clean it up anyways, but because it costs us money. We lose profits. Even though we're extremely profitable, we're going to lose some of those profits. It's not worth cleaning it up. Just let it spill. Again, this cannot continue, and yet it is continuing. There has to be a point when something happens and you humans have been stopped. Someone press the stop button. And no, it's not going to be God. It's not going to be the return of anything. It's going to be us causing something on this planet that stops us. Either that or some kind of, maybe the old Planet X is coming by and it's going to wipe out, humanity or most of humanity, or there's going to be some event that, Mother Earth takes care of business, kind of like shaking the fleas off of her back. But it's one or the other. And at this rate, God knows what's going to happen first, but I think as I'm doing this video right now, I just think about how few people, Americans especially, even know about this little incident at the Hanford site. It's even on their radar. They even understand what it is and what it's doing. Because I'm going to tell you right now, I can't remember me ever reading something about the Hanford site like this or any other site and understanding how big it was. How many millions of gallons and how many... This is the first time I knew how large that was. But once something like this happens, it should be news everywhere. Breaking news, this is huge. Government needs to go in and fix these problems, and these tanks are leaking. Build tanks right next to the old tanks and transfer the damn crap to the new tanks. Like, you know what I mean? Like, What in the hell's going on? Again, they just push it off the radar and continue. Fukushima, nightmare, polluting the ocean? No, it's not that bad. It's not bad at all. Fish are dying because of a bacterial infection that's happening, scientists think, and they're closing down the crab season early. Oh, and they're also closing down this season early, and they're also closing down that season indefinitely because of the bacteria in the water. At least, I can say, at least, they're stopping the fishing so that we don't eat the crap. Or at least trying their best to. But do you know how many people are swimming daily off the coast of, well, the west coast of the United States, California especially? They're out there boating, fishing, don't even care. They'll turn on the news, oh, fish die off. Well, there's probably something in the water that's killing the fish. I'm not going to sweat it. Oh, there's something in the water killing the fish. And it will also affect you too, bozo. Just unbelievable. Take care.